And next up is Bethany. And I forgot to look at what she's doing, so please give her a round of applause.
I'm reading poems, of course. Or I won't be. Okay. This one's called Breathe Content. Hot sun, tingling, embracing flesh. Bird call pleading for response. Orange red burning behind closed eyelids. Seeing colors at the beginning of the universe. Nature interrupted by sirens. Fire truck, ambulance wail. Velvet smooth pink petals drifting to ground on gentle wind. Breeze caressing face. Fresh scent of tree flowers in blossom. Ground smell like grass stain on blue jean knees. Lone ant crawling across white stone desert, stretching, seeming endless. Harsh squawk of passing bird, sounds melting from right ear to left. Petals or raindrops, dropping, gentle thud on back of head. Cloudless sky divided by long, jet streak of airplane engine passing. Tree branch, dripping, smearing, blending, like oil paints on wet canvas into blue sky backdrop. Petal carpet under shedding tree across green grass. Patting, gently prodding to touch, cradling body, staring into sun, eyes closed, open to new white tints, breathe, sight, deep inhale, warm content. That's that one. The next one I'm going to read is called Forecast. I read you were forecasted to travel and find romance. I told you you had the travel part down, and I thought all you needed was the romance. And I should have told you, you found that too. Short. And I have one more. This one's just called Poem. I write these cliche poems, these wannabe, idiotic lyrics. My hand grows restless, pencil the unwilling instrument of crap, crap, crap. Jesus, I can't even write shit without mulling over it first. It's not free from pretension, this is pretension incarnate. I'm trying to be raw, to be useless, wasteful, empty, but even that is too much to ask. This poem is a piece of shit.
And next up is Mike Thoreau, who I believe is going to be doing some poetry. Round of applause.
Thanks for the extra time. I don't mean to be a prima donna. All right. This is from Shane's book of poetry by the same author, Charles Bukowski. This poem is not by me. It's called The Talkers, and it's by Charles Bukowski. And it goes as follows. The boy walks with his muddy feet across my soul, talking about recitals, virtuosity, conductors, the lesser-known novels of Dostoevsky, talking about how he corrected a waitress, a hasher who didn't know that French dressing was composed of so-and-so. He gabbles about the arts until I hate the arts. And there is nothing cleaner than getting back to a bar or back to the track and watching them run. Watching things go without this clamor and chatter, talk, talk, talk. The small mouth going, the eyes blinking, the boy, a child, sick with the arts. Grabbing at it like a skirt of a mother. And I wonder how many tens of thousands there are like him across the land. On rainy nights, on sunny mornings, on evenings meant for peace. In concert halls and cafes, at poetry recitals. Talking, soiling, arguing. It's like a pig going to bed with a good woman. And you don't want the woman anymore. Alright, this one is a little longer, but it's strangely appropriate to some of the, or this evening really. Alright. It was much easier to be a genius in the 20s. There were only 3 or 4 literary magazines and you could get into them. 4 or 5 times you could end up in Gertie's parlor. You could possibly meet Picasso for a glass of wine, or maybe only Miro. And yes, if you sent your stuff postmarked from Paris, chances of publication became much better. Most writers bottomed their manuscripts with the word Paris and the date. And with a patron, there was time to write, eat, drink, and take drives to Italy and sometimes Greece. It was good to be photoed with others of your kind. It was good to look tidy, enigmatic, and thin. Photos taken on the beach were great. And yes, you could write letters to the 15 or 20 others bitching about this and that. You might get a letter from Ezra or from Hem. Ezra liked to give his directions, and Hem liked to practice his writing in his letters when he couldn't do the other. It was a romantic grand game then, full of the fury of discovery. Now there are so many of us. Hundreds of literary magazines, hundreds of presses, thousands of titles. Who is to survive? Out of all this mulch, it's almost improper to ask. I go back, I read the books about the lives of boys and the girls of the 20s as if they were the lost generation. What would you call us? Sitting here among the warheads with our electric touch typewriters, the last generation? I'd rather be lost than last, but I'd read these books about them. I feel a gentleness and a generosity as I read about the suicide of Harry Crosby in his motel room with his whore. There seems as real to me as the faucet dripping now at my bathroom sink. I like to read about them. Joyce, blind, prowling the bookstores like a tarantula, they said. Don Pesos, with his clipped newscast using a pink typewriter ribbon. D.H. Horny and pissed off H.D. being smart enough to use her initials, which seem much more literary than Hilda Doolittle. G.B. Shaw, long established as noble and dumb as royalty, flesh and brain turning to marble, a bore. Huxley, promenading his brain with great glee, arguing with Lawrence that it wasn't in the belly and the balls, that the glory was in the skull. And that Hicks Sinclair Lewis coming into light. Meanwhile, the revolution being over, the Russians were liberated and dying. Gorky, with nothing to fight for, sitting in a living room to find phrases praising the government. Many others broken in victory. Now there are so many of us, but we should be grateful, for in 100 years, if the world is not destroyed, think how much there will be left of all this. Nobody really able to fail or succeed, just relative merit diminished further by our numerical superiority. We will all be cataloged and filed all right. If you still have doubts of those other golden times, there were other curious creatures. Richard Arlington, Teddy Dreiser, F. Scott, Hart Crane, Wyndham, Lewis, and the Black Sun Press. But to me, the 20s centered mostly on Hemingway, coming out of the war and beginning to type. It was all so simple, all so deliciously clear. Now, there are so many of us. Ernie, you had no idea how good it was for you 4 decades later when you blew your brains into the orange juice. Although I grant you, that was not your best work. And this one is by me. Normally I write poems at the Poetry Slam itself, but this one I took the time to prepare beforehand, so it might not be as good. Alright. I called it The Secret Life of a Whirling Dervish. Alright. I have a stomach full of nuclear fission, and I am having a lucid vision of a smashed up television, of a brand new human condition, of his Formica cancer's remission, and an SUV that runs on dead politician. I have 4 fingers, and they are curling into a fist, and one of them is pointing, and I'm saying, not me, and I'm not this. My body is moving, dancing, flying, fucking, fighting, overriding the stop reflex. But I won't be done until I have convinced myself that my limitations are not my doubts, delusions, insecurities, failures, or fears, but instead the laws of physics. My real eyes realize real lies. My real ear can hear real laughter and an honest tear. My mouth is chewing its way through to a new view of myself multiplied by 2. My heart feels like it's made of amphetamines, and that means I am worthy of this boast. I'm alive! But I have made my way outside the beehive, and if I were raptured and placed on heaven and hell's defendant stand, I would be able to say without a trace of regret, this is what I am. Nothing less and nothing more. The only thing is, don't look at me at what I was before, because instead of nuclear fission, my stomach was filled with bullshit. My body was soft and my heartbeat was only a pitter-patter. Sometimes it was completely inaudible. My hands and my feet and my brain and my spirit were clumsy because I confess I didn't use them. As a matter of fact, you've caught me in rare form. Usually I fall somewhere closer to the norm. I don't typically have visions, and my guts are usually just nebulas. My life force is kind of like Dracula's. When I turn into a whirling dervish, I always get so dizzy that I fall over and I can't get up again for a very long time. But when I think about other whirling dervishes, I think about the ones who spin like a centrifuge so fast that they take off and burn up in the atmosphere. That fear is something that Dracula has in common with the rest of us.
The fruit from the tree of knowledge has always been within my reach. I just don't have the courage to pluck it, unless, of course, it's one of those times I smile at myself and I say, fuck it. The truth about me is I'm not as radiant as I could be, but when the time is up and I lay dying, can you honestly say you spent your life trying?